Adah Nyambura Ameru was 20 years old and in her first year at Maasai Mara University. She was studying education, planning for the future, and preparing to travel home for the holidays. On Friday, April 28, 2023, she went out with friends in Narok town. She told her family she would be home in a few days. By Saturday morning, her phone stopped going through. Calls from home went unanswered. What began as concern slowly turned into fear. On Sunday, April 30th, her body was discovered in a bush in the Macedonia area of Narok, just a short distance from the university. She was found half naked. She had visible injuries. Later examination would show that she had been tortured before she was killed. Between the moment she left the club and the moment her body was found, something went terribly wrong. This is the story of those missing hours and the people who were there when Adah Nyambura disappeared. Adah Nyambura was the firstborn in her family, a role she carried with quiet responsibility. At just 20 years old, she was already seen as the planner, the one others relied on. Her father, Peter Miriti, described her as his friend, open, honest, and deeply trusted. She did not hide things from him, and the conversations were frequent and close. She was a student at Maasai Mara University, pursuing a Bachelor of Education degree in mathematics and business. Teaching was not just a course she was enrolled in, it was the path she was actively preparing for. She had planned beyond university, plans she spoke about at home, plans that were already taking shape. Away from home, Nyambura was social and outgoing. She spent time with friends, attended students' gatherings, and like many young people her age, balanced schoolwork with moments of leisure. Videos from the night she disappeared show her relaxed and happy, unaware that it would be her final night out. To her family, she was dependable. To her siblings, she was the example. To her parents, she represented a future they had invested in and believed in. Her death did not only end a life, it interrupted a trajectory that was already in motion. Now, this is the context in which Adah Nyambura disappeared, not as a statistic, but as a young woman who was living, planning, and expected to return home. On Friday evening, April 28, 2023, Adah Nyambura called home before leaving for the night. She spoke to her father, Peter Miriti, and told him she was planning to travel back home the following week, either on Monday or Tuesday. During the same conversation, she mentioned that she would be going on out later that night to attend a party with friends. The call was normal and calm. Nothing in her voice suggested distress. It would be the last time her family heard from her. Later that night, Nyambura went to Elevate nightclub in Narok town. She was in the company of friends, and videos and photos taken inside the club later showed her laughing, dancing, and appearing relaxed. She did not appear to be alone, and at least one man seen with her that night would later become central to police investigations. In the early hours of Saturday, April 29th, at around 3 a.m., Nyambura was last seen after partying at the club. This is the final confirmation time she was seen alive. What happened immediately after remains unclear, and accounts of how she left the club and who she was with begin to differ from this point forward. By Saturday morning, Nyambura had gone silent. Calls made to her phone from home were not answered, and shortly afterward the phone stopped going through altogether. This was unusual and immediately raised concerns among her family. Throughout Saturday, there was no confirmed sightings of Nyambura. No communications was received from her, and no movement were publicly traced. Later findings would suggest that she was not killed at the location where her body was eventually found, indicating that she may have been held or moved during this period. On Sunday morning, April 30th, a missing person report was filed at Narok police station by her boyfriend, Brian Kimutai. In his report, he stated that Nyambura went missing after partying at Elevate nightclub. Investigators later noted inconsistency in the timeline surrounding when she was last seen and when she was officially reported missing. Later that day, members of the public discovered a body in a bush in the Macedonia area of Narok town, a short distance from Maasai Mara University, and alerted the police. Officers who arrived at the scene identified the body as that of Adah Nyambura. She was found half naked with visible injuries to her face. A postmortem later revealed that she had been tortured, strangled, and burned with a hot iron before her death. Her shoes were missing and none were ever recovered from the scene, reinforcing investigators' belief that she was killed elsewhere and her body dumped in the bush. The call came during a Sunday church service. A body, your daughter's body, has been found, the police officer said. Miriti froze. He could barely breathe. Without telling his wife Isabella Kirimi, he left for Narok alone, afraid the truth would crush her. With detectives from the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, he began piecing together Nyambura's last hours. She was at Elevate nightclub with the man and some friends, witnesses said. The group broke up around 3 a.m. Her boyfriend took her phone and left her behind. By early Saturday morning, she was gone. All I heard was that her body had been dumped somewhere, brutally tortured, Miriti later recalled. I could not comprehend what he was saying. I traveled to Narok without telling my wife because I was worried for her. At Narok Level 5 hospital, his worst fears were confirmed. It was her, my daughter, lying there, he said, voice breaking. Desperate for answers, Miriti retraced her final hours. At the nightclub, detectives showed him photos and videos from that night. I saw her, laughing, dancing. She looked so happy, he said. I could not imagine that the same girl was lying in the mortuary. As investigations began, contradiction quickly emerged from the timeline of Adah Nyambura disappearance, while police records indicate she was last seen at around 3 a.m. on Saturday after leaving Elevate Club. Her boyfriend Brian Kimutai reported her missing on Sunday morning. This delayed raised questions, particularly given that Nyambura's phone had gone silent much earlier and her family had already been unable to reach her throughout Saturday. Further inconsistencies appeared in statements regarding when she was last seen, whom she left the club with, and whether she was considered missing on Saturday or Sunday. Additional concern arose from accounts placing Nyambura in the company of specific individuals at the nightclub shortly before her disappearance. Witnesses and club staff indicated that she was not alone and had been seen with a man and other companions. It was also reported that her boyfriend allegedly left the club with her phone, a detail that would later become significant to investigators. These inconsistencies, combined with forensic findings, suggest she was killed elsewhere, deepening the suspicion that key details about her final hours were being withheld. As public pressure mounted, police arrested 2 suspects in the connection with the murder. They were identified as Brian Kimutai Bepko, a 4th-year student at Maasai Mara University, and John Mwangi Kashu. Investigators stated that 2 were the last people seen with Nyambura before she went missing. During the arrest, police recovered a mobile phone believed to belong to the deceased, further tightening the focus on the suspects. The case was presented before a Narok court where prosecutors requested that the 2 accused persons be held on custody for 21 days to allow detectives to complete investigation. The Directorate of Public Prosecutions informed the court that forensic samples had been collected from the body and that both the deceased phones and the suspect phones were undergoing forensic analysis at the DCI headquarters. Prosecutors also told the court that several witnesses, including university students, were yet to be interviewed. The court granted the request, ruling that the suspects be detained due to the risk of interfering with witnesses and the likelihood of flight. It also emerged during the proceedings that the first accused had previously been suspected from Maasai Mara University for disciplinary reasons, a detail that added another layer to the case but did not, on its own, establish guilt. The matter was scheduled for mention on May 23, 2023 as investigations continued. For Nyambura's family, the arrest offered no closure, only a fragile hope that the unanswered questions surrounding her final hours would eventually be confronted in court. What remains unsolved is not just who is responsible, but why so many details surrounding Adah Nyambura's disappearance conflicts. Those contradictions sit at the center of this case and they are yet to be fully explained. Her body was carefully transferred to Meru Funeral Home, where it was preserved ahead of her burial, which took place on May 10, 2023. Her devastated father, Peter Miriti, remained at the forefront, ensuring every step honored his daughter. They had robbed me of my firstborn, for whom I had bigger plans. She was my friend, and she will never hide anything from me. Her mother was so devastated she was not talking to me, he said. Meanwhile, the wheels of justice began turning. The incident had sparked outrage among university students who demanded swift action. They gave police a 2-day ultimatum to apprehend the suspects or face consequences, reflecting the community's frustration at repeated attacks on students. The family, students, and community waited anxiously for the burial and for justice to be served in a case that had shocked Narok and the nation.